Good evening and welcome along to the Blues Brothers podcast, the alternative Rangers podcast. 3 new signings through the door and then a 5-star demolition of Annan on Friday that felt less like a cup tie and more like shadow boxing with a crowd. And while Rangers are strengthening, the picture elsewhere in the title race is becoming interesting. Hearts head into this week missing 3 of their key players. Meanwhile, across the city, Celtic's manager seems less concerned about his own club's transfer business and more interested in how young male journalists are dressed at his press conferences, if you know their history. And with Europa League Thursdays this year being as disappointing as a Russell Martin appointment, should Danny Rowe save his Sunday best for Dundee? Joining me to discuss all that and more, my very good friend, Mr. Ross Clark. Ross, how are we, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, mate. I'm doing all right. I'm getting there, mate. As you can see, by the chalk white complexion, mate, I'm not the best, but we battle on, mate. We battle on.
The troops in the chat don't realise how unwell you've actually been, mate. So I appreciate you taking the time out to come on and talk Rangers with me for an hour.
If I was still in the hospital, mate, I'd try and do this live for the hospital bed, mate. I wouldn't let you down, but it's good to see you, mate. You always put a smile on my face, as I'm sure you do to the viewers that are joining us. Hello to everybody in the chat. And I'd just like to say, before we go any further tonight, we are doing our first Q&A live on the podcast. So if you want to fire your questions in the comments, we'll pick the best ones and we'll dive deep into the talking points that you certainly bring our way. And the first one I want to start with, Ross, Annan, a fixture that we would expect to win. We did play almost a second string side. Were you surprised to see Joe Rothwell make an appearance on Friday night?
Surprised he's still here, mate. I thought that, I think we've spoke before. I think Rothwell's got a lot to offer for the right team in the right league, which, judging by CV, appears to be the English Championship. But I thought the likes of him and Dowell came in, gave a real professional performance. We know we don't have to look too far back into the annals of Rangers history to see that these ties can be tricky. So I thought it was a professional, competent performance from, as you say, a second string team. Only Magoma and Gassama, am I right in saying, who play kind of semi-regularly. So really, really impressive performance. I get it. You can only beat what's in front of you. Maybe it's not the greatest opposition, but the likes of young Finlay Cutlass getting a game before he goes out on loan to show Danny Rowe what he can do before he hopefully goes out and has a good half season at Kilmarnock. Miovski banging in some goals. Just professional. I think that's about the best word you can use for it, Davie.
I'd just like to say all the best wishes to Alexander and his recovery as well, mate. The boys had a tough time at Italy, and I for the bottom of our hearts for both of us, we wish them all the very best, and get well soon, mate. So on that, Ross, you make an interesting point on Rothwell and those who did play on Friday, and I'm probably touching on a second point here. Has he done enough to think that he might still be here, or do you think that was merely just to get the minutes ticking over and he is destined for the exit door?
Mate, I think a player like Joe Rothwell will be on too much money to no be a first pick at Rangers. When you think of the cut price deal we got him on, coming as somebody who's been promoted from the Championship the last 2 years, he wouldn't have came here on 14, 13 grand a week. You'd be talking probably nearer Matondo money. And we've got too many players, and we've had too many players across the last few seasons. Matondo, Dowell, players who have come up for big wages who have not really contributed. With potentially with Connor Barron being injured, there's a chance that maybe he could have played a bit more. But I think with Chakwani, you're looking at his game time being limited. So to get him off the wage budget and also to potentially get a fee back, I think it's a no-brainer that he will leave, Davie. But I still think he's a viable option if you can't get rid of him or you can't get the right money you're looking for. I don't think he's the type of player that couldn't play in a functioning team. I think he's one of the ones who's been tarred with the Russell Martin shitty stick of disorganisation, players all over the place, trying to play players in positions and doing things that was out with their armoury. So I think when Russell Martin was in charge, John Souttar was your kind of getting on the ball and your playmaker, as daft as that sounds, and the ball was kind of bypassing Raphael. So I think he's got something to offer, but I think it would be best for all parties if he found an exit, potentially back down to the Championship.
Obviously, I was inviting questions for everybody in the live chat, and we got a couple on our post, mate, that we put out earlier in the week. And one of them came for the boy Big Harry, and he said, Davie, you said 2 weeks ago, would you play a skeleton squad v Ludogorets? Now, with Dundee coming up on the Sunday, mate, that is arguably the most important in fact, I don't even think it's arguable. That is the most important fixture of the week. But I was having a look at the Europa squad online with UEFA, right? And I'll just quickly go through it with you, right? So you've got Butland, Kelly and Kieran, right? Your keepers. Your registered senior players are Tav, Aarons, Souttar, Sterling, Giga, Magoma, Fernandez, right? Your midfielders are Rothwell, Barron, who's injured, Diamande, Asgard, Cameron, Gassama, Raskin, Moore, and Bailey Rice. And then your forwards are Chermiti, Antman, Miovski, Gentles, and Finlay Curtis, who is expected to go on loan with Kilmarnock. So you're looking at that. You can't really make major changes then, can you? So is it a case now of maybe just keeping the momentum rolling and maybe looking to get a good performance on Thursday and take that into Sunday rather than resting your best players?
For me, it's the non-negotiable starters for Dundee. I still wouldn't risk. I don't think, thinking of Chermiti, for example, who's played most of the European games, I'd maybe give Miovski Thursday night off the back of a hat-trick. Maybe bring Antman back in. Use some of the B squad. Mate, I just think whatever happens at the weekend, we're going to be either pulling away for Celtic, making up ground on Hearts, and or a bit of both if it's a draw, which for me is the absolute ideal result at the weekend. So I think that there's certain players that you want for the Dundee game who are league players. I wouldn't risk them, but I get that you're going to have to play some, just based on the fact you would have said Lyle Cameron, you would have said Finlay Curtis, would have both played. There's two that have went out on loan that you're not going to be able to now play. The likes of Butland, give Kelly a game.
Would you play? So if Sterling, right, is currently injured and not going to be back for Sunday against Dundee, do you no risk Tav then and play Aarons on Thursday night? What about Souttar, who minutes are being managed at the minute? Is obviously Sunday more important than risking John Souttar on Thursday night? So would you play Giga beside Fernandez possibly?
So in the defence, mate, isn't where I would be most worried. I think the game on Sunday, you're not going to be relying on your defence, hopefully, based on the way we've been playing. Potentially, Souttar and Fernandez could probably keep their places for Thursday and keep that partnership developing. That's what I'm saying. It's a balancing act for me, Davey, between building relationships on the park, keeping folks' confidence rolling. For me, Chermiti's still our number one striker, but I would keep Miovski in for Thursday night. A, because you don't want Chermiti getting injured because he's your outball against a big physical Dundee team, and B, to allow Miovski to continue playing. I actually thought Finlay Curtis was away. One of the group chats I'm in had said it was official he was away. Is that? I take it that's false information.
I've not seen an official picture yet, mate. I would imagine that we're thin on the ground, that Alexander's right in what he's saying, that he probably will be away because he is a member of our European squad. But it's interesting that you make that point, because I was really encouraged by how he played on Friday night, and I get it was against Annan. But anytime he's took a chance, mate, he's never really done himself an injustice. I get the physicality of the league at times maybe shows him up, but even as a sub and an impact sub, you think that he makes more of a impact, for example, than a Danilo, for talk's sake, who absolutely was useless on Friday night, mate, was he not?
I think we're trying to play Danilo as a 10. He can't even play up front, where he's just expected to stay between the start again, where he's expected to stay between the sticks. Never mind having him trying to link up play. Danilo is a boy who, for me, his injuries have, obviously he's not anywhere near the standard of, say, a Michael Moles, but see these tricky, fast, low centre of gravity strikers who twist, turn, make space for themselves. Knee injuries are criminal for them, because that's where they get their explosive power in that. So I'll be interested as well. It's totally off topic, but to see how Agaman comes back for an ACL, because he's another one of the players who's get the legs bent and pushing his back in to stop people coming round him. And if you lose the strength in your leg through a bad knee injury, then that can really affect you. And I think that's what's happened to Danilo. I think that when he came here, he was a good player, but he's never had a good run of games. And I don't think he's going to get enough games here, Davie. That's now the last 3 or 4 managers who've seen him as the kind of third choice striker, whether it be behind Dessers and Igaman, whether it be behind Chermiti and Miovski. So I think for Danilo, it's a case of having to go elsewhere. But then, how much of a hit are you prepared to take on him when you've spent $6.5 million just to get him off the wage bill? But back to your question, I realised I was doing the Donald Trump weave away on a wee garden path there and back in. Finlay Curtis is going to offer you more in any role apart from centre forward, and even at that, judging by some of the people that have watched him through the youths, he can do a job up there as well. So I was happy to see him on Friday. I'll be happy to see him go on loan. I just hope, as I've kind of stated before on here, the Kilmarnock pitch doesn't stunt his development through injury when you've got a boy kind of 18, 19 who's still developing in those joints and muscles and bulking himself up and getting to the rigours of the Scottish game, that doesn't affect his progress.
Mate, obviously there's a lot of positives at the minute, so we'll try and keep going with that vibe just now. Tello Asgard's free kick, mate, which completed the scoring, absolutely tremendous. And certain goalkeepers around the world, no matter what team you play for, would maybe struggle to get near that. I thought it was placement that was simply fantastic in regards to the strike. Looking at that, and that he's got that sort of attribute in his locker, does it surprise you that he's no hot one before now?
It's back to Captain Mabo again, isn't it? And how refreshing is it, and how good is it to see that you've got other players in the team who can. You're now seeing Magoma, you're seeing Barron taking corners, you're seeing wee intricate ones, Rothwell at the weekend taking a short corner in and feeding Dow, who scored a great header. You're seeing Asgard scoring an absolute worldie free kick. Can I just say, that is one of the best free kicks you'll ever see. Like, genuinely, that's up there with Ronaldo Portsmouth. The knuckleball one he hit, and it's, mate, he set it off about 8-10 yards over the bar, and it's come back down and landed in the side net in the top corner. Like, you could have two Gianluigi Buffon's in goals, and they don't save that. And it's kind of a shame. I was listening to the flagship show on Heart and Hand earlier on, and they were saying that it loses some of its gravitas because it's the 5th goal in a 5-0 rout. Whereas if it was imagine that exact same free kick and you're one each up at Dingwall or something, and you get that in the 87th minute, and it looks better because it's a better standard of opponent. Mate, the truth of the matter is, no goalie in the world saving that. That was ridiculous. it now gives him 4 goals in his last 5 games, one of which was obviously the Celtic game that we've discussed at length, where he was refereed out the game with his booking. But he is another one, Davie, who is starting to get to grips with the Scottish game, who is starting to find his working boots when he needs to have his working boots on, and also has got the confidence in the fans with him. And we've not criticised fans on here before, but I've always said at a club like Rangers, we are too quick to cast people off as dummies, when the reality is that it's a hard club to adjust to come and play for, with the pressures, the expectation, the fan base, the size of the stadium, the dimensions of the stadium. Everything at Rangers is big and grand. And for a boy who's came for League One, as I said last week, I've watched a couple of League One games recently because Xander's moved there. And it's not a comparison to what the football we play up here.
See, Ross, we announced the signing of Skov Olson and paraded 3 new signings prior to the match on Friday night. Does this signify intent from the chairman and also belief in the manager going forward? Are we now attacking this title race? Is the first question I want to ask you.
I think Andrew Kavanagh's been watching the podcast, Davie. I think we've made him aware that there's automatic Champions League places and a £60 million jackpot to be found at the end of the season. So him being a businessman, if he's got a 1 in 3 chance of winning 60 million, he's going to invest the 20, isn't he? And I think that's kind of what you're seeing at the moment. How good is it to have people who, first of all, have come in and made a pig's ear at the start of the season, but they've took ownership of that. The guy's relocated from America to here to make sure that it doesn't happen again and that everything's done right. And for us to identify 4 positions, we identified as supporters on here at the start of the window, 4 positions: right winger, tick; left back, tick; number 8, tick. All we are missing for what we wanted is another forward. So it seems
just on that, since you say, because Paul's brought up a question relevant to that. So he's asking, because of the 49ers relationship, if you like, could you see us going for that boy Perot from Leeds as that potential striker on loan between now and the end of the season, just to beef up attacking options if perhaps Danilo goes somewhere on loan?
Well, I think that's the first issue, Davie, is you need to get Danilo out. You're not going to run with 3 number 9s when you only play 1 up front. So I think that's one of the main parts, is getting rid of Danilo. On the boy Perot, I've not watched a lot of Leeds. I don't know a lot about him. But what I do know is, if he's looking for football towards the end of the season, we've now got a relationship with the 49ers. His agent must be touting him for loan deals, because obviously a certain team at the other side of the city asked our chairman for a loan, our vice chairman for a loan of one of his players to come and play against the team he's the vice chairman of. So that tells you what's going on across the other side of the city, mate. That's wild behaviour. So he's obviously is available. His agent's obviously putting out that he's available. If we can get a deal done on a striker who's going to just be between the sticks, great. As the one I would like to see coming in. Don't know enough about him, Davie, to be honest. I don't know his strengths, his weaknesses. I don't even know what type of striker he is, to be honest. I know that I'm in a group chat, and one of the boys in the group chat watches Leeds, and he raves about him, says he's great. So if the potential's there and the deal's right, then I don't suppose Parag Marat's going to have any qualms about sending him up here when it bolsters his interest north of the border, as well as getting one of his players south of the border off the wage bill if he's not going to play. You're on mute.
Added to what you said previous about the chairman, mate, we had a comment come in for Loudrup is God on the YouTube post, and it says, Does the new signing of Skov Olson restore the trust in the chairman, or was that trust ever lost, mate? Did the Martin appointment hinder him, and is now things back on track and we're all moving together going forward?
It depends if your glass is half full or half empty, doesn't it? A lot of folk will say they made a rip-roaring arse of it, and there was a bit of trust broken. Other people will say he came in, Patrick Stewart was already here by that point. Was he part of the deal of the takeover happening? Was he put in there to oversee that after his interest in Man United's takeover? So there is talk that was potentially why Stewart was here. So was he put there by Kavanagh and whatever as part of that ongoing process? We don't know. What I would say about them is they've come in, they're based overseas, they've put their money where their mouth is, and they've trusted a chief executive to run the club on their behalf. What's happened is the club's been run into the ground a wee bit in the first 6 months of the season. They have had a look at that. They've come across and they've rectified it, and they're now again putting their money where their mouth is, Davie. So we are looking at players like Skov Olson with a potential, is it 2 million loan fee for the 6 months plus 9 million at the end of the season if you want to keep him. So you're back up to more or less Tony Andre Flo money, innit? You're beating the Chermiti deal again. So Stevie Clifford did say after the round table that Andrew Kavanagh didn't think 8 to 10 million for Chermiti was a lot of money, and he was prepared to spend that on a development player. So I heard Stevie this week calling them fun tokens. The 20 million's just fun tokens to him. And if we get this window right, it could be a real fruitful end to the season. And if you get that 60 million Champions League automatic entry, Davie, that changes the landslide in Scottish football, because at the moment, one team's had the pick of that every season for the last 3 or 4. And then before that, they've had the pick of that for the 8 or whatever years before. So Scottish football's been very lopsided in its allocation of funds due to the fact that only one side of the city was getting that. If we can get into that and claw back that amount of money, along with the fresh investment and the right people in the jobs, then what Kavanagh says is right. We want to win by winning sustainably. And I think that you're well on the road to that, because if you invest a wee bit here, I believe I said last week or the week before that we're no anywhere near PSR regulations now. So we can afford to push the boat out with signings. And then if you're guaranteed 60 million Champions League money next year, plus your gate receipts, plus your TV money, plus your any points or whatever you win, it just you could be talking near 80 million going into the club on that alone. You've won a league, potentially players like Gassama leaving with a winners medal, you start getting the kind of 8, 10, 12, Raskin 15 million. Maybe the numbers start to come to fruition at that point, and all of a sudden you go for a club that's running at a loss to a club that's running it again and propelling in the right direction, Davie. So I think it's really pivotal where we're at now, and I think that the American investors through Kavanagh and Marathi have recognised that, and they're really doing what every fan wanted them to do, and that is to put their foot on the throat, and as Paul says, speculate to accumulate. You're gambling 15, 20 million in this window with the opportunity of winning 80, and you're in a 3-horse race at the moment.
No, it's a fair point, because Steven Gerrard famously said, we never fix the roof while the sun is shining. But to be fair to Kavanagh, he's had to try and fix the roof with no horns after what Russell Martin done to us. So we're slowly but surely getting there, mate, and it is steady progress. Now, obviously, we've invited the viewer and listener questions tonight, and this one is an interesting one for Curry Muncher, who's a regular of the show. And he said, if things do go for us, hypothetically, between now and the end of the season, will that make the manager a top target for European suitors, mate?
So obviously, shout out to Curry. He's been here since day dot. Actually got to meet him, as we said, at the Fan Takeover podcast. Great guy, really supportive of the channel, and happy to answer a question. The answer to the question, sorry, for me is hopefully. See if our manager, the same as Gerrard won an Invincible League title and Aston Villa came in for him the next season and he left. See if our manager's been touted with big European moves, our club's doing well, and we then need to act like a functioning football club, which is what we seem to be doing a bit more now, and that is, who's the next Danny Rule? Identify them the now, so that if a club was to make an offer for him tomorrow, you've got somebody lined up that you can go and approach, and that's the way the football club should operate. But for me, I'm never going to complain about a team poaching our manager, because if they're poaching our manager, we're winning things and the manager's doing well, Davie. So it'll be bittersweet, the same as it was when Gerrard left us. There'll be a few hurty feelings, but as well as we want to be a player trading club, a byproduct of that is that your manager's going to get poached if you're doing well, because the big lights are the same for a manager in the EPL and the top 5 leagues, the same as they are for a player, mate.
So interesting today that the Rangers Review first broke the story, and then the club later on confirmed on social media that Stevie Smith is a permanent fixture in the coaching team between now and the end of the season, mate. We spoke about potential Rangers coaches at the time, and I think Stevie Smith was probably last on the list. He was just there by default because he is a youth coach. But Danny Rule saying that he's added something to the squad and he's been impressed with him, mate. So what's your take on that? I always thought, to be fair to Stevie Smith, any time that he joined Tom Miller in the gantry, he covered Rangers TV, he spoke well on games. He was of a similar mould to Tomo in terms of how he analysed games when he done it. So is that a positive for the club, mate?
Happy to take Danny Rule's guidance on this one, mate. Don't see what goes on at the training ground. Don't see what value Stevie Smith's adding. But if Danny Rule's happy with him, then who am I to argue? What we've said before on here, mate, there is a million ex-Rangers players who've been here during the good times, whose input we would value when it comes to being about the club. So for me, having Stevie Smith in the backroom team to be able to talk young players through what it takes to come through as a young guy at Rangers. So even for that side, it's good for him to be about the team. But whether obviously Danny Rule feels that he's offering enough tactical guidance to him, motivation to the players, wee tidbits of information. So aye, great. Congratulations to him, and long may it continue, mate, because he's part of a management team that right now is getting the best out of what they've got. And thankfully they've been on to the DeWalt Black Friday sale, and there's some new shiny tools coming to help out in the kit bag over the next few weeks.
So, mate, you touched on one of these guys earlier on in the podcast, in Finlay Curtis, and then obviously Lyle Cameron made his debut for Aberdeen on Sunday. Two young-ish lone Rangers that will be playing their fitbit elsewhere between now and the end of the season. What does the future hold for each? I look at Lyle Cameron, right, mate, and then I look at the type of player that Danny Rule's bringing in. It looks to me that he's bringing in athletic types, 6 foot plus athletes that are good on the ball but aggressive, and I don't see him fitting in to Danny Rule's Rangers vision for what I'm seeing being slowly assembled. Now, I get that he might go to Aberdeen and do well between now and the end of the season, and of course he did get man of the match on Sunday, but is there a future there long term for either of them? Or does Finlay Curtis stand the best chance with the two?
So I think Finlay Curtis has got a better chance of the two, just based on the fact he's obviously younger and Danny Rules gave him a sniff. Yeah, you're looking at that game at the weekend, and Cameron's not even getting time on the grass before he makes his move again. When you're playing Dow and players like that. So definitely, I think the most handsome man in podcasting, Dino. Excellent. What a guy. What a guy. So, mate, Cameron for me's got something to offer us. It's that old saying, innit? See if Lionel Messi showed up at Scottish football at 21, he would have been discarded for being too wee. And that is the way we see things. I think that Lyle Cameron has went to Aberdeen. I watched their game the other night to see how he got on. Stood out like a sore thumb. And that's playing at our level. So you're not going to tell me that Lyle Cameron hasn't got anything to offer this Rangers team. I don't buy that for a minute. Whether he fits into the scope of what Danny Rowell's looking for, aka 6'2" plus, built like a shipwreck house, and that's a non-negotiable. But for me, then you've got the blinkers on, and you could be missing gold that isn't a big brute. Do you know what I mean? I would like to think Lyle Cameron will go play for Aberdeen and continue to put in performances like he did at the weekend. I'd imagine he'll score goals, he'll set up goals for the rest of the season, and then it's up to him to come back in the summer and force his way into Danny Rowell's plans, because you're not going to tell me that Kieran Dowell or I'm trying to think what other crap we've been bringing in. You've got your Kieran Dowell,
Rabbi Matondo, mate. Rabbi Matondo.
I nearly said Barim Hamdani. What I meant was Bajrami. The likes of Bajrami, mate. For me, Lyle Cameron will give you as much as him. He gives you work ethic, a bit of dig. The first 3 or 4 games of the season, remember Lyle Cameron was man of the match in at least a couple of them, awarded by RTV. So I think when he comes back in the summer, it'll be a clean slate based off of going and performing in the league against teams that we're also playing, and Danny Rowell being able to analyse where he's popped up on the park for Aberdeen against, say, a Dundee or a Falkirk, compared to where our midfielders and the gaps he can find. He's a very intelligent wee player for me, because he is so slight. I think sometimes he can kind of ghost about. Similar to, obviously nowhere near the standard of Messi. Please don't think I'm saying he's as good as Messi, but that way Messi can kind of find himself in wee spaces and he just kind of pops up because he is so slight. So I'd like to think Cameron's got a future at Rangers, but again, how can you argue with Danny Rowell at the moment? If we go through a period where maybe you lose Asgard and somebody else to injury, and then you're having to start the Rabbi Matondo at number 10 experimenting that, maybe if you ask me then, I'll say no, I wish I kept him. But for the rest of the season to go out and get games, I think it's a good thing. And Sniper saying there, like, is it the fact that Rowell's trying to build a team of giants? See, for me, great to have a team of giants, but I don't just want. I want to go to the shop and I want to have a choice. I don't want to just have a Mars bar and a Mars bar and a Mars bar and I want a Twix and I want a Bounty. And I just think that Lyle Cameron offers you something a bit different without being that big brute.
Now, we have signed players, and the one that caught everyone's imagination is Skov Olson, mate. Do you see this as a game changer in terms of the type of signing that we have been missing in years gone by? And it is that statement of intent that we said for the board, but does he have that obvious quality that takes us probably one step closer to the piece of the jigsaw that has been missing?
Well, we need a right winger. We've needed a right winger. I don't think Antman has found his feet in Scotland yet. I think he'll have something to offer us, but it gives us options, Davie. For me, Skov Olson gives us options. You look at the stats from his Bruges days, and unbelievable. I think it's something like 80 odd goal contributions in 120 games or something. Ridiculous numbers and a lot of goals, not just assists.
And I'll just credit our old friend, John Walker. I'm pretty sure he said that when he was at Bruges, he had a 2.9 goal contributions per match, or chance creation per match when he was there. Sorry, chance creation. So that is what we've been missing, is it no?
It definitely is. And I think it gives us somebody mobile on that right-hand side as well, because I think one of the biggest problems we're seeing with Chermiti is he's doing the tracky backy, as Tomo would call it, and he's also doing the press left and right, and then we're complaining that he's not in the box in order to be there to take the chances. So a big part of his game has been is running the two channels as well to occupy a back three. You're now looking at having Gassama or Mikey Moore on the left, cutting in on the right foot. You're looking at having Ant-Man on the right, who can go outside and free up space for somebody to come in. Maybe your Asgard at 10 to move across. Or you've got Skov Olson, who's going to play on the right and cut in. That in itself congests the middle of the park if they can get shots away, and allows folk to then start running for deep, because their back four are going to be drawn in and it's going to create spaces. So if he can find his Bruges form, he's obviously no hit the heights at Wolfsburg. But my counter argument to that would be neither had Václav Černý, and he came last year and was shit hot for us. What I would say, Davey, is how good was it to sit and watch his RTV interview and see a boy with that ceiling for his talent, and that who didn't look as if he was just coming here to get games. He looks as if he wants to be here. He seemed excited. He said all the right things. And most importantly, he's planning on coming here and impressing us enough that we're going to back him to the tune of 9 million in the summer. So, is he a game changer on paper? Yes. But what I would also say is I hope that if he doesn't come in, set up 2 goals and score a hat-trick in his first couple of games, the fans don't start saying, oh, he's a waste of money, the same as we've done so many times before. I hope that we give him time. He's not played a lot of games this season. So for me, we need to give him a bit of time and not expect what we did with Chermiti. Oh, we've spent 8 million on him, so he's going to score a hat-trick every week. That's not how it works. So that would be, I think he'll get a bit more time because he's coming with a pedigree, Davey. So with any luck, he will hit the ground running, but I'm also saying, urging people to have a bit of patience with him as well, because he is a cracker.
Mate, obviously we are in the January window and the rumour mill is crazy. There's been a lot of talk about this one particular player from all sort of angles, and Bobby raises the question, would you sign the boy for Motherwell, that Mash Winishi, if that's how you say it? Put my teeth back in properly there. But to me, we are signing Olsen and us having Ant-Man there, he looks to play right side of front 3. I don't think there's a position for him at Rangers. Am I being wrong in saying that?
No, well, Ant-Man's here. I think Manwanisi offers similar to what we're saying Olsen's going to offer. I don't think he doesn't like to hit the byline. He's coming in and looking to get shots away. For what I've seen him, which is limited, Davey. I don't watch a lot of Motherwell. So I think on the wing, you've got Mikey Moore, who can play there as a sort of third option if you need. You've got Gassama, who can play on the right if you need. But you've got now Skov Olson, who's going to play the majority of games when fit and available. And you've got Ant-Man, who you've put a significant outlay on. I don't think you want to have Ant-Man and Manwanisi at 3.5 million. You don't want to have 7 million quid's worth of right wingers sitting on the bench. And I get what we're saying. People maybe want to sign him because the other side of the city are being linked to him, and it's one of the ones I'll go in and get him before they get him, kind of thing. I don't think he would play a lot for us based on the outlay for Skov Olson, mate.
So the jigsaw is slowly coming together, mate, and I get that it depends now probably on who goes out between now and the end of January, although the manager said in his press conference after the Annan game that he expects more bodies to come in. So the missing parts of the jigsaw, mate. We spoke earlier, and I heard you say this often enough. You still think there's scope there to get another 9 in, but that's dependent on Danilo going out. Is there any other areas to the team that you would like to see us strengthen? Because I look at that back line, right? And if Suter gets an injury or Fernandes gets an injury, you're relying on Giga between now and the end of the season. And for what we saw of Giga on Friday night, especially the first 10, 15 minutes, mate, that guy worries me.
He's not very good, mate. As I say, with it meaning to come across as snobbish or that, like he's been signed for 10 million quid for the EPL for Wolves, and then he's went away to the AFCON for Burkina Faso and no played a minute. So that tells you that a £10 million player in the Premier League, you would expect him to be going to international football and being a star. So he is a bomb scare. Enciala needs a loan. You've got Suter, Fernandes. I think we need a centre half. But having watched the Rangers review this morning, when Blair, Malloy and Derek were talking about have you ever slammed a window shut, which was mad. Which was mad. They were talking about slamming house windows shut, which was excellent content.
Just on that, has Blair Malloy ever worn clays that aren't Burberry?
Mate, I've actually got one of the wee tweed jackets. He's a man of calibre. He's a man of distinction. No, their content, as we say, mate, is really good, and I think Blair's really added to that. That was on a tangent there. Where were we going again?
Centre halves and Giga.
They said this morning, I'm pretty sure. I listened to that many, but I'm pretty sure it was a review who said we're no looking at centre halves. It's not in the budget. Potentially another midfielder and a striker. I think we should be looking at a centre half, mate. Even if it's an older coming to the end of their career organiser in the mould of Davie Weir, just to come in and play when required. Hopefully. Mate, I've got the same jackets. I take a heavy offence to that.
I'm just jealous, mate, because I can't fit in them. That's what the problem is.
I would like a centre half, Davey. I think a centre half and a striker, and you've got a proper title-winning strength team. Because Suter breaks down, all of a sudden you're back to Giga and Fernandes. And then if one of them gets injured, you're up shit creek without a paddle, to be honest, aren't you? So, Curry, I'll have you know, I'm by far one of the best dressed people you'll ever see. Ever.
See on that, mate, if one of the two first choice centre halves now got injured, is Giga a better option than Enciala, or is Enciala a better option than Giga?
Well, they play different positions. Although they play centre half, they play different positions. So you've got Enciala who's left-sided, and you've got Giga who's right-sided, and never the two shall meet in the middle, Davey. So if it's Suter that gets injured, do you fancy Giga and Fernandes again? We've already seen what that was like, and I actually think Fernandes has flourished without having a bomb scare next to him. And if Fernandes gets injured, I would trust Enciala and Suter more than I would trust Fernandes and Giga, if that's the question you're asking. But I would rather get in, as they say, a sort of a Leon Balogun type, somebody. Davie Weir's the prime example, somebody who's coming to the end of their EPL career, bring them in on a 6-month loan. If they do well, you offer them a year next year or whatever, and just somebody that's going to come in and play 10 games between now and the end of the season, just to swap out and be there to cover injuries, and would be ideal for me.
So, mate, obviously, the two games this week, Thursday night in the Europa, Hampden Ludogorets, you said that you think Miovski might start on the back of the hat-trick and keep Chermiti for Dundee. on Sunday. Now, why is that Chermiti is the number one striker now, mate? Is it what he's done on the balance of the last 4-5 games that's shown that he's made steady progression for game to game and week to week? Or is it that he makes us a better team when he's in it? Is the connections between the players in the final third a lot stronger when Chermiti plays versus when Miovski leads the line?
Well, every time Chermiti goes off the park, mate, we end up under the cosh because Miovski or Danilo can't hold the ball. So the way we are set up to play relies on us having a big physical striker, and Miovski isn't that. So against Dundee, as I say, you're going to have two big hammer throws at centre half who are going to be looking to win every header. And I think that Chermiti offers us something different. And I think now Chermiti, you're looking at that Dundee game, you're looking at a potential front three of Chermiti, Skov Olson and Mikey Moore. Or you're looking at a front four if he goes with a 4-2-3-1 of Chermiti, Moore in the 10, Gassama and Skov Olson. And then that means you're leaving out Asgard. So we've got that many options now, but I think that there's a noticeable drop-off when Chermiti hasn't played for us, mate. The ball comes straight back every time you look to play it forward. So the way we're set up tactically at the moment, I think Chermiti's your best option. Could that change if it comes to we just want our number 9, kind of similar to what Miovski did at the weekend, where you've got a lot more of the ball, so your number 9 can just stay in the middle of the goals, then potentially. What I think we're actually building, Davie, is a team that's got horses for courses. You're building a team where if you can get Ant-Man firing and you want to play wider, you can put Ant-Man out on the right and have Mikey Moore playing on the left, moving in to let Magoma or Romans get round the outside of him. And then you can put crosses in, which is Miovski's bread and butter. But if you're also playing against packed defences, you can get the ball up to Chermiti and then have 3 boys in behind him or 2 playing off him. So I think that what we're actually doing is accumulating wee chess pieces, mate, that we can move the board and set up the board to however Danny Rule thinks is going to best complement that game.
So, mate, Sunday, Dundee, what kind of challenge do they represent for us? And I don't want to do the Thursday game too much of a disservice because I get that's up first. But really, if we're all being realistic here, the chances of qualification are slim to nothing. The win will give us coefficient points and some money in the bank. But really, this week is all about playing Dundee. And with Hearts and Celtic playing each other on Sunday, it gives you scope to potentially close the gap at the top to even 3 points, 4 points, or 6 points, and Celtic drop out it a wee bit. So when you see that, mate, what is the best team to play going forward? Because I think now we've got to see our best team, our best players play in the league games. And you mentioned 4-2-3-1 there. With the options that we've brought in, will that be a system, especially at home, that'll be tailor-made for a team like Dundee?
I would go. I think we're at the stage now where we don't have to go the three at the back that ends up a 5 at the back. You're looking at, as I say, there's different games will call for different tactics, Davie. But I think the way we are now, you're suited to playing the 4-2-3-1. You've got Moore, who's really good in that central 10. You've got Gassama, you've got Skov Olson, who can come in and interchange. But I've also got pace. You've seen Gassama cutting down the left in cutbacks. You've got a striker who is holding the ball up for you when you come under pressure. You've got Raskin and Chukwani and Diamandi and Barron now fighting for 2 midfield places. And then you've also got Asgard and Moore now fighting for the 10. So all of a sudden now you've got wee battles everywhere in the team. You've got Romans and Magoma fighting for left back. The only position I now struggle to see where there's two players capable is at right back. And I kind of mentioned that a few weeks ago. I think now we're tailor-made to play the Gerrard way with Chermiti up top and the two tight. But in order to do that, you need your right back to offer you width. And then your two sitters can then sit and fill in if needed. Or one of the two, similar to what Ryan Jack done for us and Steve Davis. So, mate, Danny Rule will know what he's doing a lot more than we. We're trying to mind read a wee bit here, aren't we? But if I was the gaffer, I would be going along the lines of the kind of the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-3-3 with your one sitter and then your two eights in front. Probably the 4-3-3 is the most aggressive, but the likes of going to Tynecastle, going to Parkhead, you've got the option of just going your 4-2-3-1. Essentially, Davey, we need to be we've got attacking flair players now, and for every game, I would say in the SPFL, I wouldn't even say now that you should fear going to Parkhead. Every game now, we should be going and trying to get the best out of our players to score more goals than the opposition.
But Dundee seems to be that bogey team for us in recent years. Since Clement came in and we had the nothing each draw up at Dens Park that killed us. I think we've dropped points to them in at least 2 games every season since they've come back up to the top flight. It's no a great record against them in terms of, I'm pretty sure we drew with Stephen Presley's mob earlier on this season as well, didn't we? So again, mate, under Russell Martin, of course, but is there any fear now, or has Danny Rule slowly eradicated that fear now that we're getting into games with expectation? And I think the barometer for that was the fans on Friday night turned out 38,000 for a game against Annan when there wasn't even 38,000 at our last Europa League game. So that just shows you that the managers now slowly got the fan base all behind them. So does that galvanise us as a club? Are you expecting Ibrox to be loud on Sunday?
I think the fans are bought in. I think the fans are. We've spoken about this before. Danny Rule has played his part. He's came in and took a shambles and turned a pig's ear into a silk purse, right? He's done that. Andrew Kavanagh is working hard to right the wrongs that he put in at the start of the season. The Celtic board have done their best for us by employing Wilfred Nonce and then giving the job to Joe Biden to the end of the season. And then you're now looking at the players are starting to turn up. The players over the Christmas period, the last 5 games, have been tremendous. The fans are coming on board with the project. And as a unified, when you've got the board, the players, the manager, the fans, the expectation, the confidence, then I think that is... And it's shown, but we're the form team in the league by like 8 points or something since Danny Rule came in. That shows that we are building something here. And the fact that we're going to play Dundee, Davie, and you're coming off the back of going to Parkhead and going to Pittodrie and getting points, getting wins, good wins, is for me, Celtic game, you're getting points, you played St Mirren, you played Motherwell, you played Hibs. Then going to Dundee shouldn't scare us. I don't think it does. So I'm quite confident, mate, going there that we'll get a good result and keep the momentum going.
And does the Thursday game provide an inconvenience to you, Ross, in the sense that there is that injury risk there, or do you think, like I said earlier, that momentum is key at the minute? We've got momentum, we're building momentum, we scored 5 goals on Friday night, let's try and score 2 and 3 on Thursday night and then take that momentum into Thursday. Is that also, or can that be a positive?
Momentum is what momentum is, isn't it? It's pushing forward, it's building on the results that you've got. As I say, my worry just is everything's gone good now. You've seen what's happened to Hearts in the case of a week. two or three players injured, big players, and that's a massive inconvenience to their title hopes. And for me, Europe is meaningless now, bar 100 grand or whatever you get for a win. I would rather no risk players that are key. You think of them, Birmingham, Shankland, Devlin and Shankland have been their two best players all season, and they've lost the two of them in a week. So for me, that's how easy it is, and I would rather no risk them in what is essentially a European dead rubber. If there's players like that I feel and Danny Rule feels are integral to us going on a winning run and keeping this momentum sustained.
Now, mate, there's a couple of wee topics I want to touch on before we finish up. Obviously, that sort of snaky wee serpent surfaced in that Neil Doncaster over the last 24 hours. The man who looks like an extra for Freddie Mercury's 1980s bathroom, mate. I just can't stand this guy. This is the guy that's the figurehead of Scottish football, or the SPFL's top league, right? And he's never got us a TV deal that has any significant monetary value. We always scrape bargain basement. We do TV deals with 3 o'clock shutouts. We do TV deals that have got restricted games. We got TV contracts that put us on at any other time that fits around the English product. We don't sell ourselves to a broadcaster that markets the game properly. We don't sell ourselves to a broadcaster. I mean, look, Premier Sports the other night, I don't know who was commentating for them, but it wasn't Rory Hamilton. It was some other boy, and he sounded like a wee boy that was sitting there with his grand's tape recorder trying to call the game, and it was horrendous, mate. And I get this is a fan podcast, and folk can come on and give me stick all they want, but I'm a paying punter, so I'm entitled to my say. And I just think how we broadcast the game in Scotland, how we market the game in Scotland, how we manufacture the game in Scotland doesn't do any of the clubs a favour. And when we've got all these big American owners pumping money in, we really have to sort of modernise how the game moves forward, whether that be almost a Netflix type subscription service to sell our game going forward into the digital age.
Well, mate, one of the reasons that they can't give out these good deals, mate, is because they've made football so unavailable through. They had your game the other night's Premier Sports, then you're on Sky Sports, then you're on TNT Sports, then you're on DAZN or whatever else. So I think that is a viable option that should be getting looked into by Scottish TV, is that sort of SPFL hub type programme on Netflix where you can go in and watch games past and present. Scottish football as a whole, mate, just doesn't conduce itself to being a sellable asset all over the world. But like, yeah, you look at the games at Falkirk on that plastic pitch, which is terrible. We're still allowing that. We've actually gave extensions to clubs. They were meant to be getting phased out. We've gave extensions for another year. You've got referees that are no full-time that make shocking decision after shocking decision. You've got VAR that's made up of 4 cameras or something that are static cams. You don't have goal line technology. So why would somebody from England want to watch Livingston versus Falkirk when you've got nothing there to make it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they're playing on a plastic park. VAR doesn't work right. The refs are brutal. And that's the circle of life in this, is that because we don't invest in the product's not worth selling, which means we don't get enough money for teams to invest in the product they're putting on the park, which then means the TV deal. So it's just a big vicious cycle. And I don't see how we get out of that, Davie, to be honest.
Well, he's certainly not getting out at any time soon, because he's on a 2-year payoff deal at almost 500 grand a season, mate. It's ludicrous.
I just think, mate, that they were on the right lines with the banning plastic pitches in the top flight, right? But then you can't put they want to phase out plastic pitches in the top flight, but then at the weekend they'll not let a junior team play against Celtic at their own park. they have to go and play at Kilmarnock on a plastic. Make it make sense. I don't get it.
You did touch on the last subject I want to finish on, Aldo. I did see you hang in the comments, mate. We did touch on Curtis going to Kilmarnock at the start of the show, mate. But you mentioned VAR, mate, and Willie Collum done his monthly programme on Friday night again. And again, there's more mistakes in it than a horse could shite. And I just can't understand why you would broadcast that as head of refereeing, that you're coming on and showcasing these mistakes. Now, he said something about the Rangers Motherwell game, right? And the one where the boy went down in the box and all the Motherwell fans were shouting for a penalty. David Dickinson didn't give it. And Willie Collum said, for all the angles that we had and the camera angles available to us, we couldn't see it. But I do accept that on social media, there's been a camera angle that we didn't have access to that may have resulted in the referee changing his mind. Now, see if there's somebody standing there videoing that with your phone, right? That's showing you an angle where you may think that's a penalty, matching up against the broadcast cameras that you have, where you should be able to see every incident in a box, mate, that is no questionable. Then how tin pot is that? How can the head of refereeing be on Sky Sports, YouTube and all the rest of it, coming out and saying that? Does that not just show how poor the game is and how it's broadcast, but how he is at his job? And has he not amplified the amount of mistakes Crawford Allen had before him since he's took over?
This is the first month I've not even watched the VR show, mate. Usually I watch it as soon as it comes out. I've not even bothered my arse. I heard the audio of the Fernandez one, and I also seen a clip where he was talking about the Celtic right back's tackle, and he's talking about, it's on top of the boot, so it's not a sending off, despite a couple not that long ago, Sterling's was a red card because it landed on the top of the boot. So to me, I've said this to you before, mate, it's went away for the apology show, which it was for the first few months, to you know, it's a bit sinister for me, where he's changing the rules and trying to change the viewpoint of what's happening from month to month. The exact same tackle happens in one month because it suits a certain agenda, and then he's made that many mistakes that he's now trying to kid on that things that are blatant red cards on the blatant red cards. So for me, he wasn't a good ref to start with. He's wound himself in that position. As the head of referees in Scotland, mate, you're paying the guys £1,000 a game, Davie, a couple of years ago. So I dare say it's more than that. A Scottish referee gets paid now, and you're telling me they're doing that 4 weekends of the year in whatever function, whether it be AVR, whether it be assistant referee, whether it be main referee. Tell them they're going full time. See, for their $4,000 or $3,000 a month, tell them they're going full time. If you don't want to go full time, then you'll not be doing top league games, and you'll be dropping down to second and third division games where you get a couple of £100. You're not getting that money if you're not willing to dedicate your full time to it. So that's where I stand on it, mate. I stand on and they go hand in hand. The whole Neil Doncaster and Willie Collum, they go hand in hand, where they'll not invest in the right referees, they'll not invest in the equipment, they'll not invest in and they're putting their money into this VR show. And as I said to you before, mate, it's fast becoming he's trying to get the referees out of jail now for me, and pandering to certain audiences. If he pisses you off a month before, the month after it, he'll tell you a blatant red card isn't a blatant red card, and try and talk his way around it, despite the fact he told you a few months ago that was a red card. So that's became a bit of a joke for me, mate, and I never partook in it. I wouldn't even give him the YouTube view, mate. Talking about YouTube views, but Davey, I've seen a few of the boys in the comments saying about our wee goal to try and get to 500 subs by the end of the season. Obviously, again, the numbers in here, 160 people watching us at this time on a Tuesday night. So just before we finish up, Davey, if I can grab the opportunity just to thank people for coming in, interacting with us, for the comments, the questions, for liking, sharing, subscribing, interacting with us on Twitter. And if you get an opportunity on your way out, if you could just hit the subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't already. It would really help us to get to that kind of 500 number we've set ourselves. and potentially some of the bigger pods, having spoke to some of them, I think there's potential, Davie, that maybe a couple of them are maybe going to come on and spend an hour ways and stuff as well to help us grow the channel. They've been quite impressed with what we've been doing. So we'll just try to grow the podcast, trying to engage with you guys as much as we can, and hope that you are enjoying it as much as we are.
Absolutely, Ross. And before any of them come on, I'll need to clean up my intros before that point. But Ross, as always, mate, thoroughly enjoyed your company. To everybody watching in the comments who watches it back, as Ross said, we really appreciate it. I hope your team wins on Thursday and Sunday. And it's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Good night.
Audio Jungle.